there is a public static void main method inside this class, and this method has two variables of integer type called value1 and value2. Value1 has a value1 and value2 has the value 2, and then I am trying to compare the value1 and value2 variables using the different relational operators we just covered. For doing that, I need to use a conditional operator as well. We will be covering conditional operators in much detail in the upcoming lectures, but for now you can understand that when we talk about conditional operators, we talk about if and else statement. So if is again a keyword in Java which can be used to compare things, and the syntax is very straightforward. You write the if keyword and then you write the actual comparison syntax or the actual comparison expression. So in the first example, we can see that I'm writing a condition which says evaluate if value1 is equal to value2. I should put a curly braces around here. You can see there are no curly braces here, but that is for a case when you have only one statement under it. But again, I will cover this in detail, and I don't want to confuse the audience here. So I will just put curly braces around all of these if statements so that it becomes easy to interpret what is actually going on in these code blocks. As we know that these curly braces are used to define a code block. So the first if block says compare if the value 1 is equal to the value 2. If yes, then this condition will become true and the control of the program will go at line number 10. If this condition is not true, then the control will not go inside 10 because this condition is false. So it will never go to line 10 and it will move to line 11 or 12 instead. Similarly, the next condition is we are comparing the value 1 is not equal to value 2. So this condition will only be true if these two values are not equal or unequal, and if that is the case, then line 14 will execute it, otherwise line 14 will not be executed. Similarly, in this condition, I'm saying compare if value 1 is greater than value 2 or not. So if the actual value holded by value 1 variable is greater than the value 2 variable, then this condition will become true and the line 18 will be executed, otherwise it will be skipped. Then similarly at line 20, I'm doing the reverse. I'm comparing if value 1 is less than value 2. If that is the case, then line 22 will be executed, otherwise it will be skipped. And at last, I'm also showcasing an example of less than equal to operator, that you put less than and equal to together, and again you compare the two variables. Similarly, you can also use greater than equal to variable comparison operator as well in this example. So we have an example of equality, not equal to, greater than, less than, and less than equal to. Let's run this example to understand. So for running the example, I will just right click here, go to run as, and click on Java application, and we can see the output here. So as the value 1 holds the value 1 and value 2 variable holds the value 2, obviously 1 is not equal to 2, so the first condition is not going to be evaluated to true, so line 10 will never be executed because 1 is not equal to 2. Similarly, if I talk about the next condition, which was if value 1 is not equal to value 2, then execute statement 14. And yes, 1 is not equal to 2. That's why we see this particular system.out.println here. We see this printed. Moving on, is value 1 greater than value 2? So is 1 greater than 2? No, it's not. So line 18 will never be executed. Then the next one is value 1 less than value 2? So yes, 1 is less than 2. So line 22 will be executed, and we see the line 22 output here, system.out.println output. Moving on, is 1 less than equal to 2? Yes, 1 is less than equal to 2. So this particular condition is also true, and line 26 will be executed, and that's why we see this here, and that's all. So we can see that we are able to use these comparison or relational operators to evaluate different conditions, and we write those conditions using the if block. And again, if you do not understand the if block fully, don't worry, we will be covering the if blocks in detail, but the focus here is in using the operators, the not equal to operators, the greater than equal to operators, less than equal to operators, etc. So I hope these operators give you better understanding of how to use them. Now moving on to the next section of this comparison operators, sometimes we also use some logical terms to do the comparison. For example, if I just move down here and I show you these conditions here, we call them conditional operators. Conditional operators are used to evaluate the conditions like and we use them in two ways. Either we can use it as ampersand or double ampersand, or we can use them as pipe or double pipes. So the idea is basically to evaluate if one condition is true and other condition is also true, or one condition is true or other condition is true. So whenever you want to combine two conditions together, that's where you're going to use these logical operators or conditional operators. You can also use the simple English keywords like and or you can use the logical representation of these keywords. For example, ampersand or double ampersand is equivalent to and. Similarly, double pipe is equivalent to or. So we can use these as well interchangeably. You can use either of these operator representations to run a conditional check in composition, meaning you can compare two conditions saying, okay, if one is true and second is true, or one is true or second is true. So the whole focus is here in and or comparisons. So let's switch back to the IDE and let's look at an example of this to understand this in detail. So I will again take the similar kind of example. Again, I have created two variables here, value 1 and value 2. Value 1 has value as 1 and second variable value 2 has value as 2. And then I'm writing two conditions this time in the same if block. You can see I am writing first condition saying is value 1 equal to 1 and is value 2 also equal to 2. So this whole if condition is only going to be true only if both of the conditions are true. That's the property of and will force that both the conditions on the left hand side of it and the right hand side of it hold true, and then only the whole expression is going to hold true. Even if one of the conditions evaluate to false, the whole if expression will evaluate to false. Similarly, for or conditions, we again write a left hand condition and a right hand condition, and in between we write this double pipe. We can also write or in English. That will also have the same effect, and this will evaluate in a way that this whole expression will evaluate to true if even a single condition either on left side or right side of it becomes true. So or will just need one expression to be true to make the whole if condition true, whereas and will force both of the conditions to be true to make the whole expression as true. So and will require two trues to actually become true, but or condition will require only one true to become true. So if we try to understand this logic, here I am saying that if value 1 is equal to 1, which is correct, and value 2 is equal to 2, then make this condition as true. So yes, in this case, this condition will evaluate to true because value 1 has value 1 and value 2 has value as 2. So it will print the line 10. Whereas in the next condition, I'm saying evaluate if value 1 is equal to 1 or value 2 is equal to 1. So either of the expression if becomes true, either the left side this expression or the right side this expression. Either of the expression becomes true, this whole condition will become true and line 14 will be executed. Line 14 will not be executed only in a case when both of the conditions here become false. For example, if I write it like this, then we know that value 1 is not equal to 4 because it's 1 and value 2 is not equal to 5 because it's 2. In that case, both of the expression will become false and then line 14 will not be executed. If I write it like this, then the left hand expression is evaluated to true because value 1 is 1, but the right hand expression is false. But it's fine, the line 14 will still be executed because either of these side is true, so the whole expression becomes true. Similarly here, and will require both of the expressions to be true, and if either of them becomes false, the whole expression becomes false. So in the current state, line 10 will be executed, but if I change this to this, then the left hand side of this ampersand will evaluate to false, and the whole expression will evaluate to false in that case, and line 10 will never be executed. Let's try to run all of these scenarios to make a better understanding of this. So in this case, both of the conditions should work fine. So I will just right click and run as Java application, and yes, we see this line 10 being printed and we also see this line 13 being printed. So both of the lines are printed correctly. Both of the conditions are evaluating to true. Now let's try to play around with it. Let me change this value to 4. So now value 1, this left hand side expression is false, which should make the whole expression is false, and it should not print the line 10, which is this statement. So let's run this program and see if that works. Yes, we see that this particular line is not printed now because this whole expression became false because the left hand side of this expression became false. Similarly, in the OR case, either of them have to be true. You can see currently value 2 equal to 5 condition will actually result in a false condition because this is not a true. Value 2 is actually 2, not 5. And still, we see this particular expression because either of them have to be true. If I make both of them as not true, now both of the conditions on the left hand side of 5 and right hand side of 5 are false conditions. What will happen now? Nothing will be printed. The reason for that is that value 1 is also, that this condition is also false and value 2 condition is also false. So the whole expression became false and this was already false. So this is all I wanted to cover in this lecture. We covered about the comparison operators and how to use them, and in the next lecture we are going to talk about the bitwise operators.